All right, everybody. Thank you very much for checking me out. This is a consumption. Let's give ourselves maybe 1 minute for us to go live, for us to get people watching. This is a consumption. It's a beautiful evening here in Ghana. Beautiful evening here in Ghana. South Pond, to be specific. South Pond is one of the historic places when it comes to the development of Cape Coast politically. UGCC started from Cape Coast. They had their headquarters from Cape Coast. So let's wait and get some people to come up live. If you are watching, I've seen 4 people. Okay, greetings, Don D'Agostino. Greetings to you yourself. Let us know where you're watching us from. Let's give ourselves a few minutes, get at least 10 people to come up live, and then we will take it from there. Like I said, I am in source runner. Okay, Don D'Agostino says greetings to Gilbert. Please, brother, the sound is a little bit fuzzy. Okay. Uh, can you hear me now? Can the name? Greetings from Texas, US. Okay. I see a lot of people coming up right now. If you can hear me, wherever you're watching me from, kindly let me know. Put it up as a comment. Let me know. Someone says he's watching from Texas, USA. Check your mic. I think I have to undo this. Let me.
Okay. Gilbert, can you hear me now clearly?
Perfect.
All right, great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. So, okay, people are watching, people are coming on North Carolina, USA, joining from Georgia, USA, Virginia. Oh, we have a lot of people coming in. Okay, they say the sound is better now. So, shout outs to everybody who is watching. My name is Eko. Let's see if you can get everything back. Yes, Gilbert, are you on?
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, someone in I movement from the UK. Hello, Echo, watching from Germany. Shout outs to everybody who is watching. Please share this video, like this video, put up a comment, and let's take it from there. We have about 20 people watching right now. First of all, this is Echo Simpson. I've been on your channel, I've been on your TV, on your iPad, on your phones for about more than 5 years now. And congratulations to all of us. We have 20,000 followers because every day we try to come up with relevant videos. You know, every day we try to come up with relevant videos to you. I think my channel is so valuable. That is why every day, each and every day, we have you coming up and following whatever we are doing here. Love Travel with Wave. Hi, Echo. How are you? Edith Rose, hello, watching from Germany. All right. So, first of all, Ghana, most of us do call Ghana or Senegal or Gambia or Angola as Africa. No, Africa is a continent made up of about 52 countries. So we must be mindful when we say, hey, I'm traveling to Africa. Yes, you can say you're traveling to Africa, but let's be specific, because mostly when Africans are traveling out, we don't say I'm going to Europe. They will be specific. I'm going to Germany. If they are going to North America, they will say I'm going to Canada. I'm going to US. So let us be mindful. Hey, Antico, how are you, Kennedy? Thank you for bringing me the drone. Like I said, we have 16 regions in Ghana, and I find myself in the central region of Ghana, where we have the Cape Coast to be our capital city. Cape Coast was the ancient capital city of Ghana until it was moved to Accra. I know most of you land in Accra. You know, you come do your thing, and they say, hey, can you pick me up to Cape Coast? And then you come, you do your thing. You see the dungeons, the canopy walkway, you know, collaborate with the people, enjoy the seas, everything that has to do with Cape Coast. Now come to Cape Coast and its development. Cape Coast is a metropolitan assembly Yes, so it's being managed by the CCMA, or the Municipal Chief Executive. We call it MCE. So anytime you hear MCE, then we are looking at the representative of the president in Central Regional, located in Cape Coast. For some time now, there's been a brouhaha, or a hula baloo, certain discussions that is ongoing in Cape Coast. Before that, I have here with me Gilbert Buhari, Gilbert Kobina Buhari. He's a renowned personality here in the central region of Ghana. I wouldn't say Cape Coast, but in the central region of Ghana. He's done a lot of things. He would introduce himself and tell us more. But like I said, giving you a little bit of history with Central Region, or Cape Coast, we used to be the ancient capital. And when it comes to what Cape Coast is noted for, we are looking at tourism. Fortunately, unfortunately, we have dungeons here. We have the canopy walkway. But aside that, every day we fight. Even Gilbert is aware. We fight to look for other, events, or other tourist sites that we can, bring into Cape Coast. Sometimes I say that we have a lot of land in the rurals, a bit away from Cape Coast. We can start doing certain things like a zip line. We can start having a go-kart. There are a lot of things we can do, but basically it boils down to money and then resources. The government may not have the money. Even if they have the money, they have priorities. Okay, so they will say we are looking at education, we are looking at finance, we are looking at this. So tourism becomes like the second or the third or the fifth priority, on their list. And so when that happens, then we have to look at individuals who would be ready to put in money to develop Central Region. Now, I think on the 9th or 13th of March, there was a project, or there was a challenge that took place here in Cape Coast. We had one of the popular places called Asassipa being demolished due to fact and findings that we are yet to know from the resource person that you are all watching right now. Growing up, I've made this video, but I'll say it again. Growing up as a Simpson, I grew up in Bakano, just a few minutes from where Asassipa is located. That is where during the festival we go there, we dance with people, we cheer up, you go with your food. I know Buhari would attest to that. Maybe later he will share his own story when it comes to that. I remember fancy dress. That was my first time seeing fancy dress, this with this masquerade thing, chasing us. It was scary, but it was fun. At the end of the day, we will all, meet up there. I used to call it Parks and Gardens, but I think it's Asassipa now. And history tells us that the place belonged to an Asafa company, which later was taken by the government. And then any land that belongs to the government, when it is given out, it's on a term, on the lease. So it may be 50 years, 99 years, a number of years. So depending on what you do with it, the government might say, okay, let's keep on doing what we are doing. But remember, most lands in Ghana are owned by traditional leaders, or they are owned by traditional families. Okay, we believe that Ghanaians or Africans or wherever migrated from Egypt, and on their way they landed in certain places. So if my name is Echo and I land here with my 2 or 3 people, I may call this place Echo Land. It belongs to me. I'm the custodian of that land. Now, as time goes on, if any government comes in and says, hey, I love this land, it's so beautiful, it will help develop the country, so let's come up to, let's partner and do something. And then I will say, okay, I'm going to give it to you for this or for that. But at the same time, this is what I'm expecting you to do with it. Now we deal with that and then we move on. If at a certain point, the government comes and says, hey, let me help you develop it more, then we move on. If they come and say, okay, this is what I want us to do, do you agree? Yes, I agree, let's move on. Fast forward, there's been an issue with our brothers and sisters from the diaspora. To be honest with you, I've been following the diasporan community since I was in junior high, because my school, Philip Kwaku Boys School, that is the first school that was established in Africa, in Ghana, was Philip Kwaku Boys School. So this school was started in the castle. My brother will tell us more. Started in the castle, and then later it was moved. They got a land, and then they moved to build their school. That is where I attended my school, the first school in Ghana. So I'm proud to be a past student of Philip Kwaku. And then things started moving on. Now, with land issues, there are a lot of things that you and I must know. I won't talk much, but I've spoken for about 10 minutes. I would let my brother here, like I mentioned earlier, he's been a relevant, valuable personality when it comes to the development of Cape Coast, traditionally, culturally. He travels all over the world, so he's knowledgeable when it comes to this. And I'm very glad that he is part of the Anona family here in the Central region. When we say Anona family, they hold when it comes to kinship, leadership in Cape Coast, in Central region, they hold bigger part of the decision making. So I am not just speaking to anybody, but I am speaking to a brother that is known here in Cape Coast. Gilbert, welcome to my YouTube channel.
Yeah. Anytime,
I know anytime you speak, and then you don't speak the English, but you speak the Fanti, some of my friends will be like, Neyo Fanti nya. Yeah. So, Gilbert, tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience living in Cape Coast or living outside Cape Coast.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for having me. I know we were in short notice, but there's an emergency.
Yeah, right.
We have to get some things straight. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your platform. You are one of the leaders in really promoting Ghana, promoting Cape Coast, and getting people to focus in on the opportunities that we have in Ghana. So I appreciate you for that, and always honored to be on your program. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, for those that don't know me, my name is Gilbert Kabana Buhari. I am a doctorate in theology. I specialize in Pan-African theology at Columbia University in New York. I'm also a native, I'm from Cape Coast. From as you said, Anana clan. And I've been doing this work, coming to, I was born in New York, but I moved to Ghana at an early age of 8, which is a pretty impressionable age to come to Ghana. My father was also quite had a reputation for, doing a lot of things in terms of relationships with the diaspora. And so coming from that family, along with the Royals and Anuna clan and all of that, I was pretty in tune with, our family history and our responsibilities coming from Cape Coast. Anybody that comes from Cape Coast, if you know the history of Cape Coast, you have some responsibility as it relates to not just the land in Ghana, but also our relationships with the diaspora. Because as you said, Cape Coast, former capital of Ghana, originally known as the Gold Coast. There's a lot of history as it relates to Cape Coast, and so if you're coming from Cape Coast, you automatically know that part of your responsibility is to pay attention to our history, and also know that in these times that we have a responsibility towards our diasporans to get the narrative right. Because on both sides, one thing I've noticed throughout my whole journey is that there's some misunderstandings on both sides. A lot of the time, it comes from just not able to enter into each other's experiences on both sides to understand. If you're coming from the Ghana side, our story stops at the seashores, the Atlantic, Ocean, right after the door of no return. Some of us don't know what happened to us when we left. On the other hand, there's a lot of conversation amongst the diasporans in terms of who sold who and what. And oftentimes, I hate the term. Africans sold us into slavery, and because immediately it gives you a picture that there was somehow a different set of group that Africans did this to. I think the narrative should be, corrected in terms of no, even if, oftentimes we don't speak about the resistance enough of Africans on the continent that were resisting colonialism. But oftentimes when we're talking about the selling, we have to make sure that we understand that it was us that this was being done to, Africans themselves, and not some sort of separate group that Africans was doing this to. So we have to get these narratives, some of the lingo right around this, but ultimately we have to be able to understand each other by entering into each other's experiences on both sides. Colonialism is different from slavery. And the experiences we have to be able to share. So I think for me, in my own history, my family history, coming from Cape Coast, coming from the family that I come from, being involved with, I immediately understood that I had a responsibility to try to make sure that the narrative was correct on both sides. And we unfortunately we have only just a few people that can really speak to both sides legitimately, that understand both sides. And that's why, when something like this comes up, it's important for us to get the right people to talk about this. So I'm glad that you provided the platform so that we can talk on this.
Right, beautiful. I've seen a lot of questions coming in. We would get into that, and then we will talk more about and then answer some of these questions. Just like you said, we have the responsibility. Some of us have been given that position to always look out for the facts and look out for what is happening, to let the people know that this is the situation. Yes, we all have the responsibility to look into this. Now, before that, people would have to know that you're part of the Panafest, Pan-African Festival. Definitely, since you're part of Panafest, then you are dealing with both locals and then the diaspora. In your opinion, what do you think is the status of Ugwa or Cape Coast since you started following and coming to Ghana, and then what is this now? What is the status of Ugwa now to you?
Yeah. As you said, I am the director of operations for Panafest. I got involved with Panafest 2014, I believe. I came in after my master's and came back to Ghana. I was looking for a sort of Pan-African platform. At that time, Panafest has had its heyday. And has done so much. At that time, it was a sort of slow period for Panafest. And so when I came in, I spoke to some of the leaders of Panafest, Dr. A.C. Sutherland, Rabbi Cohen, about, trying to establish, coming from a theological background, I wanted to bring more of a theological and spiritual emphasis to Panafest, because I had noticed within the religious groups, whether it was the Hebrews, the Christians, and others, a lot of the conversation around getting involved with Panafest, because it was such an ancestral and traditional festival. There was a lot of conversation around, the hesitancy for some of the religious, especially Abrahamic traditions, to get involved in Panafest. So I drafted a proposal called Panafest Vision 2020. At that time, I was looking, this was about 2014, 2015. I was looking at Panafest as a platform that we could use to sort of drive people and establish Ghana once again as the spiritual homeland for all Black people. Because, as you said, our history from biblical times, right, is something where Ghana, even Africans on the continent, understand Ghana's position and our responsibility towards Pan-Africanism. It's in our constitution. A lot of folks don't understand that Ghana as a country itself was created, and Nkrumah and the vision that he had was created to be a Pan-African nation. That's why our independence, Ghana's independence, means so much. And we know the famous words of our Asassipa, who you said, our independence means nothing if the rest of Africa and the rest of Black people are not liberated. So Ghana has a responsibility. I always knew that Panafest was one of the gatekeepers in holding that responsibility. So I was glad to join Panafest. I wrote a proposal, Panafest Vision 2020, at that time, looking at the year 2020 as a time where I felt like there was something that was going to happen. And we were in a spiritual time. You know, you have to be in tune with the zeitgeist, in tune with the spirit of the times, to know that this was a time where if Africa, you know, we had the United Nations declare the years 2015 and 2025 being the international decade for people of people of African descent. And so what Panafest, when I joined in, we're trying to figure out how do we make our mark, and really adhere to what the call is. And so the proposal was negotiated on, and eventually I was appointed to bring in the religious and spiritual groups to Ghana. That was in 2016, and that was also an appointment by Panafest. And so, and all of this led into, you know, later on what we have as the year of return and all these things that we did. Of course, initially, some of us were hoping that it'll be more from a spiritual and religious standpoint.
Okay.
As you said, once you bring tourism and all of that involved, then it becomes more social, political, and social economic conversation. And so, you know, while the year of return was a great success, my job as someone who, you know, was part of, this whole Pan-African arising in this 21st century, and looking at it from a spiritual lens, my job was to make sure that religious groups, whether they're Hebrews, Christians, Muslims, Rastafarians, others, you know, we brought them to Ghana. Each group has their own understanding of what Ghana means to them.
Right.
But our job is to bring the folks into, and make sure that they understand that this is the spiritual home. This is the vanguard of Pan-Africanism. And I think, you know, we are one of the only, countries on the continent that has in our constitution and the right of abode, dual citizenship and others and other political and economic opportunities that diasporans can actually access if they understand how to go through the right process. And so these things are what, for the past couple of years, we've been involved in with Godbox. I had to create foundation, the Godbox Foundation, and Godbox Tours, which is a travel and tour agency specifically designed to bring religious and spiritual groups to Ghana. And again, with the mindset that, yes, there's social, political, and there's social economic possibilities, whether it's land, whether it's dual citizenship, whether it's installment, all these things is a process to go through. But the ultimate understanding of what Godbox is about is to make sure that there's a spiritual emphasis. And that's how we brought in the Interfaith Day attached to Panafest, which I'm very proud of. And so, Panafest, again, being a part of it is an honor. And we continue to make sure that we get the narrative right on both sides. It's important that we have folks like yourself, like me, and others that can make sure that the narrative on both sides is accurate.
All right, good. Talking about Panafest, it means that it is time, or it was time to, welcome brothers and sisters from the diaspora. Definitely, if they are coming, then they will need to set up businesses economically. If they have to find a place to live, they need to get a land, and so forth. Now, come to the issue that is happening here in Cape Coast. I would love to, since you've been part of this process from day one till now. When you started this gut box stores, I've been following. You bring a whole lot of spiritual people to Ghana, and they come and they play their role, and everything goes smoothly. Now, talk about land in Ghana and then the diaspora. When did you realize that the African diaspora, when they come to Ghana, they would love to stay? And if they wanted to stay, why did they want to stay? So that we would have the better understanding from your perspective as someone who legally, plays with these people and then play with the local people.
Yeah.
At what point did you realize that when the African diaspora came to Ghana, at a point they said, "Hey, I'm not going to go back. I want to get a land and stay."
Yeah. No, I mean, that was something that I knew would happen from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because again, especially with the religious folks,
Mm-hmm.
when we're dealing with the religious folks, you see, they are dealing with prophecy and promise.
Okay.
It's not just socioeconomic or social political, but for them, there's a prophecy, there's a
Prophet.
promise. And given who we are as Ghanaians and given our history, it's not coincidence that we're in a position where, literally we are in the only country in the center of the earth. We have all these Pan-African historical precedent as it relates to our responsibilities towards diasporans. None of this is coincidence. And so for folks that, maybe 20 years ago, people didn't know too much about Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
If they were coming to Ghana, I think Panafest, we celebrated, we're almost in our 27th, 28th year. Back then when people were coming to Ghana, it was just to see culture and drama and theater and understand our traditions. But now people know a lot about Ghana, through the internet and all these things.
Yeah.
So now when they are coming, it's a spiritual journey for them. It's not just, they're just coming to see drumming and music.
Mm-hmm.
It means a lot more to them because they come to understand what Ghana means. Again,
Okay.
Ghana, majority of the diasporans may not have come from Ghana, but the majority of them had to come through Ghana. I
Yeah.
think President Obama said it the best when he came to Ghana, that the Cape Coast shores, the door of no return, and that those Cape Coast shores is where the diasporic journey began. And so, I think Ghana, we hold, when we're doing the year of return and we were launching all this, one of the things we mentioned is that Ghana holds, most of the percentages of the slave dungeons. I think it's like 60 to 70% of the slave dungeons in Africa. So
Now,
regardless of wherever you were coming from in Africa through the Atlantic slave trade, you had to come through Ghana in order to get to the new world and the quote unquote new world. And that's why we have a motto in Ghana saying Ghana, the gateway into Africa.
the gateway to yeah.
Because we were literally the gateway out of Africa. You see,
Mm-hmm.
so if you're coming back to Africa, it's only right that you retrace your footsteps, your ancestral footsteps through Ghana, and then that sets the stage for you physically, spiritually, economically to go into wherever you need to go. And so for us, it's always been clear who we are and what our purpose is in terms of the diaspora in Ghana. Again, we've have a long history. I think Ghana holds majority of the diasporans, on the continent especially in terms of African Americans. But we also always have to recognize that, when you're dealing with the religious groups, and I remember when I started this God box thing, religious groups, they operate on a different energy, a different,
Yeah.
and so when you are dealing with the religious groups, especially the Abrahamic traditions, the Christians, the Muslims, and the Hebrews. You have to understand that they look at Ghana, they look at Africa in a different light. And that is something that, while some of our people may be moving on a social, political, social, economic level, one of the things that we knew we had to do when we launched the Year of Return was to also understand that, okay, when it comes to, we're asking folks to come to Ghana, but do the Year of Return, because of all the problems that they're going through, people are going through in the diaspora, that Ghana was the first to say, listen, there's a place for you. We want you to come.
We want you to come. All right.
There's so many opportunities, and it's time to reconcile. This is our responsibility as Ghanaians. Even a lot of the Ghanaian folks, like I said, even indigenous folks don't know that, Ghana as a country was formed to be a Pan-African nation.
Right.
And so, some of the conversations around, oh, yes, they saw people are coming, and why are they coming to Ghana? Why is Ghana so important? This and that. These are the reasons why our history, like I said, biblical times, demands this responsibility on us. These people, through internet and all this new information, they understand what Ghana is, who Ghana is, and why they are coming. And so, it has forced upon us, when we call something like the Year of Return, people are going to come. And when they come, some people have come and they don't even know why they are on a continent.
Yeah.
Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hello?
Okay, good. I think we were slowing down there.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
So in relation to Ghana being,
oh, that's
can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so in relation to what you're saying, so Ghana became like the gateway to Africa. It also became the gateway to the African diaspora wanted to come to the motherland. Now, when that happens, it means that we would have to go through certain rules or certain laws to acquire land, acquire properties here in Ghana. I know that in Ghana, the Ghana Lands Constitution, we getting closer to the situation that is happening in Cape Coast. I know that in Ghana, you don't have the right. It is not in the Constitution. You don't have to sell land more than to a non-citizen for more than 50 years. It is in the Ghana Lands Commission, whatever they are dealing with. And even if you are from Ghana, you are given 99 years. Now, from from sources, it says that even now they've reduced it to 75. If you're a Ghanaian, they've reduced it to 75, unless the person wants to say, "Hey, I'm giving it to you for the rest of your life. You can keep it." But aside that, people are giving land, and they are giving terms and conditions. There's been a demolition of a project called Asassipa, where Party A is saying something, Party B is saying something. I've seen you working with the diaspora, working with the local people. You may be in between these two parties, but from your own point of view, from what you've learned, who you've spoken to, and I know you have a lot of information, knowledge about what is going on. Now, what is happening with the demolition that took place, and why is this getting out of hand? Why are we not dealing with this amicably? Why is everything getting out of hand?
Yeah.
Is there a best way to deal with this? Now, I am trying not to ask a question that would put you in a certain position.
Oh, ask. Don't worry.
Yeah. Now, because I know in Ghana, when he says something, even all over the world, when he says something, depending on the perspective, how people see it, they will say you are saying that.
Yeah.
And you cannot feed everybody. You cannot please everybody. Do you think that it was right, or do you think that which party isn't playing the part that they're supposed to play? Why? The question is, why didn't we solve this amicably, and why is it getting to this part?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's an unfortunate situation, but it's a necessary one. And let me explain. Um, you know, again, when we started this year of return, asking folks to come to Ghana, again, one of the first, it was, you have to understand the conversations that were happening on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
One of, on our, when we called folks to come to, diasporans, we're calling on our diasporans to come home. One of the first questions that diasporans were asking was, okay, you're asking us to come home again, to understand their narrative from the diasporan side is that, again, we were sold by Africans and all this type of stuff. And that narrative has taken over the story. So immediately, as we're asking folks to come home, one of the things that the diasporans are looking for is, okay, what are we coming home to?
Right.
Initially, we started off with apologies. And these kind of apologies, some Ghanaians were not happy with the apologies because, again, the other aspect, the other side of the story was not being spoken about in terms of, oh, they sold us into slavery. This is what the diasporans know. They don't know the amount of resistance that took place on the continent. Because again, this was happening to us. This was not happening to a separate group of people. We became African Americans. We became diasporans. But this was happening to us. And slavery, whilst we were being colonized, we were also being enslaved. And so the narrative right there needs to be changed. But again, some of the questions was, okay, what are we coming home to? What does Ghana have to offer us if we are coming home? And some of our selling points was, oh, we have land. In our constitution, we have, the right of abode that gives way to dual citizenship. We had two presidents that gave through executive order dual citizenship to, diasporans who had been on the continent, been in the country for years and had not received their dual citizenship because of certain processes that were in place at the time. And so an executive order was given by two different presidents, to give dual citizenship, which was the first time it had ever happened on the continent. Again, Ghana showing that we understood our responsibility to diasporans and we were genuine and asking diasporans to come home, and we were willing to the government was willing to do its part. But when it comes to land, the government doesn't own land in Ghana. Land is owned by the chiefs. Ghana, even if the government wants land, they have to go to the chiefs to get the land. Mm-hmm. And so, when it came to land, we also had to get to the chiefs to understand that this is the narrative that the diasporans are hearing. Do we have something for them? That's when you had certain chiefs that also started to stand up, understand that regardless of the narrative, we want our brothers and sisters to come home. Let's try to help them with land. The government is doing their part with dual citizenship and all that, even visas, trying to help people get visas and other things. Now the chiefs are also doing their part with, being able to give land. And even we had a historic moment where the Asassipa chief, offered, came together with all his other sub chiefs and offered 5,000 acres of land. Which was, a testament to what, our genuine call for folks to come home, because we are also understand prophecy and promise. Folks, that religious folks were coming in, and that's why God Box, we were able to, because we focused in on the religious folks, even through COVID, We have religious folks coming in because they believed that Ghana was genuine in their call. A lot of them came in, especially the Hebrews. Again, for Hebrews, they've always had a long history of coming to Ghana, establishing, and as you said with Asassipa,
Yeah.
Asassipa is a place where, even when I was going to school in St. Augustine's, we used to go
Yeah.
there.
It was there. Yeah.
20 years ago.
Hmm.
We used to go to Asassipa. It was a vegetarian, vegan place.
Yeah.
In my Rasta days, that was
Yeah.
the spot to go to, because at least you can, and it had a very good vibe. But obviously, over the years, just like a lot of things in Ghana, it's hard to maintain. It's
Mhm.
hard to keep it going. And that is something that happens with a lot of people, whether you're Ghanaian, diasporan, it's very hard to maintain certain businesses,
Right.
and keep it going, especially in Cape Coast. And so actually, I have to give big props and kudos to Asassipa for even maintaining their longevity all throughout. But as you said, um, why is this getting out of hand? Again, it's I think there's a couple of things. One is we have to recognize that um, even though this is a social, political, and socio-economic issue, there's also some spiritual implications around all of this, and we are dealing with the people when we're talking about diasporans and especially the Hebrews. We're dealing with the people that have dealt with a lot of trauma all throughout their history. And so
Okay.
anything that happens to them, they're very suspect. And rightfully so. If you look at their history, things that have happened all throughout the past, from biblical times up till now, you have folks that are coming in that are a bit hesitant, may not have some trust issues, and
Hmm.
so these type of things, when it's easy for once something small happens, it's easy for it to get out of hand, because it's almost as if diasporans and especially Hebrews are sort of anticipating something to happen that is going to offend them or affect them in a negative way, because they are used to this type of history. And
Okay.
unfortunately, this is something that we haven't addressed in terms of the trauma that diasporans and especially Hebrews have gone through. And I think that is part of why I'm saying that it's important for us to enter into each other's experiences, have people that understand both sides um, of the issue, and then try to uh, be able to neutralize the situation, because a lot of what is happening in all actuality is quite normal. And Echo, you can attest. We Ghanaians on the continent, on the country, we always have problems with land. There's always an issue. We don't that doesn't lead people to say don't come to Ghana or don't buy land in Ghana.
Yeah.
We all go through certain things, and as long as you go through the right process, we have a process, we have a procedure in Ghana. Um,
Right.
as long as you go through the right process, you're more than likely going to be fine. And there's a lot of diasporans and even Hebrews that can attest to that. But also, we know that times we have folks that might come in with a certain mentality, and then what I am seeing is, sometimes it's a mentality that people are using to come in. It's not just about how we are that we are coming, but how we are coming. What mentality are we using to come? And
Yeah.
so when you have folks that are so quick to all of a sudden cast aspersions on Ghana or Cape Coast, or say that this is a place, all of this is scam or fraud, we have to be careful, because again, this is a spiritual battle. It's not just as simple as people, land or doership. Our ancestors worked very hard for for us to get to this place. And so we have to make sure that we are careful to, and that's why I appreciate what you're doing now. That we are careful to get the narrative right, get clarity on sides. And we have a lot of folks in Ghana and Cape Coast that have perspectives, and we have diasporans that also have their perspectives, and that's why it's important for us to get the voices out that can show both sides, speak to both sides, understand it intimately, not just from a business level, but understand it from an intellectual and experiential level, and then we can address these things, because I can guarantee you that when the facts come out, it's not as it's quite simple. In fact, it's not that hard. And regardless of whether you're from the Hebrew tribe or from the Ghanaian tribe, Fanti tribe, there's certain things that I know we have to go through in order to legitimize certain things. And as you said, we had this Asassipa land. I know for years, this has been a place. I know some of the folks that are on the land, that were owners of what was on the land, and I know that in the past, because it's very hard to maintain certain businesses, especially in Cape Coast, given what Cape Coast has come to be, there's pressure on for the Cape Coast people to be able to come up with incentives that lift the community up, especially as it relates to tourism, because Cape Coast now is on the map, and everybody is expecting, everybody. Cape Coast is one of the most biggest tourist attractions in the world right now, in terms of its history, and so there's pressure on government, there's pressure on the local people, there's pressure on business owners, local business owners. There's pressure on a lot of people in Cape Coast to sort of understand the spirit of the times, understand the responsibility that has come on Cape Coast, given the time that we're in. And it's forcing people, what this has done is now it's forced us to have to go back and see and legitimize certain things, see what can be done, where certain things were not done right, and there's there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be exposed. But I think, like I started I think this is all necessary, regardless of how unfortunate some of these things are. And if you see the demolition that is happening at Asassipa, anything about Asassipa and its history, it is unfortunate. It's very sad to see. But it also is an opportunity for us to go into some of the details. If we can use this as an example, to go into some of the details of what it means to own land, what it means to build, who you need to go through the right process. Sometimes, whether we are all guilty of it, we're all looking for some shortcuts sometimes, and whatever. But there are, one thing I know about Ghana, especially, is there are processes that are in place. And regardless of how you want to see Ghana, there are some processes that are in place. We have to get the narrative right before we just come out and start, saying that, this is a scam or this is that. It's a lot more detailed than that. And it's unfortunate that some people have been kind of scapegoated in this whole issue, because I don't think that's fair at all. I think the issue is a lot more complicated, and we should use this as an example and an opportunity to try and correct things on both sides.
Right. Thank you. Whilst you're talking, I see and I read a lot of comments showing here, and I don't think we are doing the best. I mean, when it comes to when I'm reading what is going on in there, because a lot of arguments going in there. While they are listening to you, they are
really?
and still fighting.
No, it's
again,
good. It's good. This is good.
They boil in here. One thing that all of us, like you said, I think that for a while now, we on the motherland have not taken time to learn the culture of these people, and they have not taken time to learn the culture of these people. So each and every day there is like, I don't understand why this should be like this way, and they will say we don't understand why things should be that way. I have come into contact with a lot of diasporans. Some are beautiful. We are always ready to understand, share ideas, and we've been living. I've not had a situation where I've had a one-on-one maybe argument with a diaspora. No, because I try as much, even with the Asabi project that you are talking about.
Yeah.
When people contact me, I tell them that, yo, if you are not patient, if you don't have time, I will not work with you. Because the culture in Ghana takes time to make things work.
Absolutely.
And so if you don't understand my culture, how do we work together? The same way, I need to understand that with your culture, things work like papa, it works, quickly. And so sometimes we need to adjust. The moment we refuse to adjust and learn from each other, that is where these things come in. You also made mention that it is about time we go back and look at the legalities of certain things.
Yeah.
I basically don't want to talk about this Asassipa because the last video that I did, I know a lot of them. Yes, they are watching me right now. Came at me, Echo, you are defending the local authorities. Echo, you are defending local authorities, and I'll be like, yo, this is what we've been doing for a while now, trying to educate ourselves. So if it has gotten to this point and people want to pick side, that is up to them. But I love the submission that you came with. That you gave me this history about the Hebrews. I mean, the little thing that clicks, they're like, hey, let's go, let's make this thing happen, let's make noise about it, right? And then with the local people, they are also expected. One awesome thing that I want people to know is that you made mention is Cape Coast is on the world map when it comes to tourism. So there's pressure on the government, even from the local people, to satisfy the influx of tourists coming to Ghana or coming to Cape Coast. We are tired of the Cape Coast Castle. We are tired of the Elmina Castle and then the others. We are looking at development. How do we come together as African Americans or Africans in diaspora and then Africans and the Mala? How do we come together to push this agenda? So if at a point we realize that, okay, the development, it's static, it's not moving, that is where the pressure falls on the MCs and the government to do certain things. Now, in Ghana, if you're watching, in Ghana, I know you may have heard it, those places in Kaswa, Medina, and all those places, when the government want to do something, they will still break down people's buildings. Yes, and mostly they don't just go ahead and break people's building. There's a conversation. There's a conversation. And so I wish that we can all come together and look at the best way to deal with this than to fight. Because already you're having issues in America. People are not, treated well. And when it comes to the motherland, you need to at least, we need to at least learn from each other and stay well. Now, we are looking at, they are saying that maybe next week there's a committee sitting in this. And to my opinion, the Ghana Tourism Authority was called in to sit with the Minister of Central Regional Minister and then the CCMA. But I was looking at the Ministry of Housing, Land and Housing. I was looking at the diaspora. There's an office for them. What is the name?
Diaspora and African Affairs.
The Diaspora and African Affairs. I was looking at them coming together to work on, because tourism, how does a tourism minister come in here? What is he coming to do? You understand? So at the end of the day, I pray that we come up with something that would benefit both parties. Now,
yeah. You know, you hit on a lot of points. No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
yes, so I am just saying that we shouldn't have made this public. Now, my only question is, are we doing this to degrade, to kill the vibe, to downplay the works that is being done in Cape Coast, Ghana, by the so-called, I am using this word, quote unquote, so-called YouTubers making negative comment about Ghana? Or if our people, our brothers and sisters, were looking for the best way to solve it, I was thinking a direct court issue or a different approach to this would have helped. Now we are making a whole lot of noise about this. And I think it's not going well for both of us, because you are getting a lot of messages, getting a lot of calls. I'm getting the same thing. The minister is getting it. Now people are saying, I'm not going to come to Cape Coast. So is that what we were looking at achieving by putting these things out there?
Yeah. No, it's, you know, again, like I said, you know, and I think I listened to a lot of the conversation, you know, the Go Back to Africa, the conversation with Minister, you know, some of the Hebrew leaders. You know, again, this is not, if you know, if you're asking me personally, this is not a flesh and blood issue. We
Right.
have to understand that there's a prophecy, there's a promise, and there's a lot that's going to try to stop what is the inevitable from coming. And so there's a Pan-African spirit that has risen in this time. But we've always had folks, when we started even the year of return, we have always had folks that were fear mongering, that were letting people know, again, there's a mutual suspicion that exists both on the continent and in the diaspora, again, because we don't really understand each other's experiences. We haven't been willing to enter into each other's experiences. And this is the whole notion of bridging the gap. And that's what we are doing. That's what the year of return did. Now we are forced to come together, and we are coming together with all these different experiences. And this is part of the growing up pains. I trust me, I see diasporans that are coming in. They are they mean well. They want to come in. You know, their spirit is right. But again, like you said, they may not understand the culture. And so sometimes they come in expecting one thing, and then it's another thing. Then you have another group of diasporans who are already waiting for something bad to happen. Again, like I said, because of some of the trauma that they have dealt with, and so it becomes an impediment to their own progress. And so, you know, when you have folks that are coming in with that mentality, oftentimes they manifest whatever they are already thinking, you know, and so they are coming in one way with this mentality, and that sometimes, unfortunately, certain things happen. Again, we have to remove the mutual suspicion. I could give you a couple of examples. During the year of return, we had folks coming from the Hebrew community that were coming to Ghana for the Asabu land. A lot of them were coming in. Some of them had started taking, some of the leaders had started taking monies from their congregations. And they had never, some of these leaders hadn't been to the country, had never come to Ghana, had not seen the Asabu land or anything. So I was saying in a lot of our meetings that it's important for the leaders to come to Ghana first, meet with the leaders that are in charge of the Asabu land, and then start to understand the process and all of that, rather than just jumping. You've heard a call, jumping in, taking people's money. And you yourself as a leader have not been on the continent. You have not seen, you know, any of the Hebrew the Asabu leaders. This becomes an issue. As soon as I said that, one of the leaders said immediately, "Oh well, Mr. Buhari, it seems as if you are trying to tell us that the Ghanaian people, you know, they don't have any integrity." And you see, when that person jumped right into that, it lets me know that, okay, we have some people that are waiting for an issue to come,
Issues to
so
come
that
up.
they can immediately start to cast aspersions or criticize what we are doing. This is spiritual. What we are doing, again, a lot of ancestors have died for these times. And we have an opportunity where finally we are able to not only bridge the gap in a unique way. And I think we have to understand that willingly, unknowingly, consciously, unconsciously, are only there for either the social, political, or social economic opportunity. They are only there for to get likes and more views and followers. They're only there. They're not necessarily understanding the spiritual implications and of what this reconciliation between Africans in the diaspora and Africans on the continent means. And unfortunately, like I said, when you're dealing with not just the diasporans, but the Hebrews specifically, we're dealing with the people that we have to be very careful with, because they are dealing with a lot of history, a lot of trauma, from biblical times to now. And so any kind of thing, they're already kind of suspect about a lot of things, and rightfully so. And it's our job to make sure that we adhere to whatever their comfort level is. Unfortunately, there are others that will take advantage of that, and then any kind of thing that comes out, they'll try to say, "Oh, don't get land. This is all a scam. This, that, and the third." I gotta understand that a lot of us, even on the continent, are going through some of the same issues. I liked what Rabbi Cohen said to this interview, where he said, "This is not trying to take one group out and target them, but this is something that we all go through. This is a natural issue, as you said, whether Dansuman, Kasua, whatever, certain things, if it's done in the right way, you have nothing to worry about. But best believe that if it's not done in the right way, if there's any shortcuts that have been done or whatever, that it will come up. And so I think for even this specific issue, not to say that Asassipa didn't do it the right way, I actually believe that they did do it in the right way. I think that what needs to come to the surface is where are these documents? How can we go into it and see what has been done? Whether it's, as you said, 50 years, I believe they've been on the land for 25 years. Or 24 years or something of that. Some of the things, I know Ghana, when you want land, if you're going to do something as it relates to business, you have to let everyone know the purpose of the business, what you're going to do, and you have to be able to come through with that. I know that Asassipa was initially, I haven't been there in a while, but I know time in Cape Coast, it was a place that people went to, and it was a vibrant place. A lot of vegans, a lot of Rastas went to, and that's why it has its name. And we appreciate Asassipa for that. But I also know that given the pressure that is coming to Cape Coast in terms of tourism, everybody's under pressure to be able to show their relevance in this sort of atmosphere in Cape Coast. And I know personally that Asassipa has been trying to show that. And that's why I know either way, whether it's the due process or whatever, this is going to be resolved. It should be resolved very quickly and simply. But and either way, how it goes, it will be the right way. But we do have to pay attention to folks who don't understand the spiritual implications of all this, who do not understand the prophecy and the promise of our time today, where Ghana is in the prophecy, where the promise is for diasporans who are coming in, specifically religious and spiritual folks who move based on prophecy and promise. And I think that's where we need to, again, it's not just a government conversation. It's not just a chieftaincy conversation. It's a conversation where folks need to understand that this is a spiritual conversation. We both are going to be tested in a lot of ways, and we are seeing it play out. And so I would call upon all the leaders, chieftaincies, the religious leaders, the Hebrews, and others that are involved to understand what we're fighting against, which oftentimes comes from within our own communities. But then let's try to understand the ultimate goal of what we're trying to accomplish, which for years, we haven't had the opportunity to. Now that we're very close, we've already dealt with COVID. COVID slowed down our momentum. The 2019, a lot of things were going to come to fruition off of that, and COVID slowed down our momentum. That too is also a spiritual aspect of what is happening. But we're always going to deal with fear mongering. We're always going to deal with folks that are doing things for likes, bringing up things for followers, jump on the first thing that they hear, especially because they can't wait to hear something wrong so that they can say that, aha, we told you, and all those type of things. There's always those folks.
Yeah,
and again, it's not their fault. A lot of them, it's not their fault. It's because they themselves have dealt with a lot of trauma. They've dealt with issues that, and so it's hard for them to trust. And so, when, I'm from Ghana, I'm from Cape Coast, I know, and I was heavily involved with all of this from the very beginning. I know the genuineness of our people and what we're trying to do, but it's not going to be easy. And this is, like I said, for me, when I see things like this happen, it's unfortunate that Asassipa has been sort of scapegoated or is being used as an example. But I hope that the leaders, the Hebrew leaders there, and others can understand that this is actually could also be an opportunity for us to get the narrative right for everybody, to correct certain things so that this sort of thing never happens again. And it's our responsibility for all of us to do it.
All right, great. Before we end this conversation, I've seen a lot of people asking me details about the whole issue. Now, the information is that I've spoken to a source from one party. I wouldn't mention the name. So I am waiting to have the conversation with the second party. Then I would come here and put the two information that I have from these parties together. And then I think people can judge for themselves, because I think I may not even want to do that, because the more you do it, this one will come and say this one will come and say that. But at the end of the day, we are waiting for the committee to come up with their findings. I think this committee was set up by the higher authority. So whatever they come up with, we would have to agree and then accept. But at the end of the day, we may still come up with the findings. But for now, I'm done with the part A, waiting for part B, and then we will talk about this. I won't talk about the number of years that was given, blah, 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 blah. I have all the information, but we are waiting on the higher authority to come up with their findings, and then we'll also come up and say, this is what we had.
It's very important.
Yeah, because none of us want to come up and say, this was it, even though we've gotten the source, the right source, one-on-one, but we still want to wait on the higher authority. In Ghana, one thing that we do is we give respect to authority. So whatever the authority says or come out with it, we may want to comment on that together with the information that we have. So, Chairman, thank you very much for being on my channel. I want to big up everybody who was following: Judy Jones, Fight Hard, Alvis, Julian Alexander. There are a lot of you. Golden Heart, I've seen you pushing some agenda, putting up your comments. I'm okay with that. Go ahead. We would love to read and then learn from each other. There's no hate, there's no anything like that. So bring in the comments, let us read it, let us love it. We will still have African Americans or African diasporas and Africans learning from each other. It would happen. So, brother, thank you very much. I don't know if you have a last words to anybody watching right now.
Just the one last thing. Again, You know, for a couple of things. One, you know, let's try to support our brother Rabbi Cohen, who is always caught up in the middle of some of these things. You know, he has a huge responsibility on both sides. And so, you know, if anybody in that position, where you have both sides that are expecting you to be loyal, and side, it's always a very hard position to be in. One of the things that this program is supposed to do is, again, like you said, we don't want to necessarily go into the details because we have the respect of the authorities to get into that, and that's why it'll be for anybody, whether it's you, whether it's, you know, others, you social media folks, to try to act as if they know the details, or not know all the details and just put anything out there just for controversy. This program, and especially what I want to make sure that there's clarity, that it's, you know, this is something that both sides can learn from. We're not here to pick any sides here, but we also understand both sides very well. And there will definitely be a resolution to all of this, but we have to be patient. We have to also, but ultimately, we have to recognize that there are forces out there that would love for these controversies to continue. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we always stay neutral, and always make sure that both sides are you know, being on each other. I have no doubts from both the diasporan side and on the continent, you know, in Ghana and Cape Coast especially, that you know, we'll be able to resolve this peacefully, just like we do with every other issue. And we shouldn't try to magnify this and try to say that, oh, this is happening, or we've taught diasporans and this is what's happening. Once you hear stuff like that, always approach it with a level of suspicion and skepticism, because then you should know that there is an agenda behind that. Anybody that wants us to reconcile or wants us to come together won't lead with such a notion, but we'll do the facts. And so that I agree to come on here, and hopefully as time goes on, we leave it to the higher authorities to solve this issue, and we know that it'll be solved easily. But I would advise folks, diasporans, you know, to make sure that we go the right channels. There's a lot of people on the ground that claim that they know certain things, or you can go through them to get certain things done. It's our job to make sure that we make sure that diasporans go through the right process, see the right people, because there's a legitimate way to get things done, and you don't have to be worried about getting land or dual citizenship. There are many Hebrews that are on the continent in Ghana that are living peacefully. They have their land, they have their homes, and because they went through the right ways. I'm not saying Asassipa didn't do that, but I think this is actually an example that we can use in order to make sure that we get all our channels corrected, so that this never happens again.
All right, great. So thank you very much for being on this. Pretty soon, when we have all the information and necessary contact, we will come up again and then give you a beautiful story that we are all waiting for. It's a beautiful story because at the end of the day, we all want to laugh and say, oh, so it was just this. And then we also be looking out for development and everything within both parties. So thank you very much, guys, for checking on this channel. If you didn't like, or
no, remember Cape Coast. If you know, remember Cape Coast CCI.
Bra.
Next week, you know, because I saw me there, I serious, fine.
Are you serious? Because since I yimpa down that, you worry friend, you worry send the message. Some me phone it, but messages are allowed or what? But ended. or the Wusia Fantan. So next time, you back a fancy, Fantan. All right, Charlie, may I say?
Okay. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Bless it.
All right. All right, bless.